Last night, Justin Trudeau stood in front of Canadians and announced retaliatory tariffs on $155 billion worth of American goods, from orange juice to bourbon, lumber to plastics, and even vehicles. Canada is hitting back at the US with a tax on pretty much everything that crosses the border. And for the first time in what feels like forever, Trudeau actually managed to unite Canadians, at least on social media. People were cheering him on, feeling a surge of patriotism. But let's not get carried away. This isn't a moment of triumph, it's a moment of reckoning. Because the truth is, Canada has spent the last 2 decades putting itself in a position where it has no leverage in this fight. For years, Canada has been sleepwalking into economic dependency. Over 70% of our trade goes to the US, and instead of diversifying our economy, we've doubled down on policies that make us weaker. We said no to pipelines that could have transported Alberta's natural gas to global markets, opting instead to rely on the US as our sole customer. We let our big banks juice the credit markets, fueling a housing bubble that's left younger generations priced out of the dream of homeownership. We filled the gaps in our economy with government jobs and deficit spending, pretending everything was fine while our productivity stagnated. And to top it all off, we brought in over 1 million immigrants a year under Trudeau, not to fuel innovation or growth, but to prop up a faltering system. Now here we are, facing a trade war with the US, and we've got nothing to show for it but a fragile economy built on real estate speculation and unsustainable immigration. Canadians are angry, and they're directing that anger at Trump. But the real question we should be asking is, how did we let it get this bad? Let's talk about pipelines for a second. Years ago, Trudeau said that there was no strong business case for Canadian gas. And he wasn't entirely wrong. From a purely economic standpoint, it's hard to justify the billions of dollars needed to build infrastructure to sell cheap natural gas to the rest of the world. But here's the thing. This isn't just about economics. It's about national security. When 76% of your exports go to one country, you're handing them a massive lever to pull whenever they feel like it. In business, we call this customer concentration risk, and it's a recipe for disaster. Albertans are understandably upset. They see pipelines as a lifeline for jobs and economic growth. But if the only way to make these projects viable is for the government to pour billions into infrastructure, then maybe we need to rethink our approach. Perhaps we should have nationalized oil companies or demanded ownership stakes in pipeline projects. Instead, we've left ourselves vulnerable, and now we're paying the price. Meanwhile, in the US, this trade war isn't even making headlines. Real Time with Bill Maher, a show that's watched by millions in America, and I think it's the second most watched news program in America, didn't even mention the tariffs on Friday night. Over here, we're booing the American national anthem at hockey games as if that's going to make a difference. Spoiler alert, it won't. There's maybe a dozen Americans who care about hockey, and they're not the ones calling the shots. Trump's tariffs aren't just about Canada. They're part of a broader economic theory he's believed in for decades. He thinks America should produce everything domestically, and he doesn't understand why the US runs trade deficits with so many countries. He's not the first to try this. Herbert Hoover did something similar with the Smoot-Hawley Act in 1930, and it plunged the US and the world into a depression. Will Trump's tariffs have the same effect? Maybe, maybe not. But one thing's for sure, he's not backing down. On social media, I've noticed 2 distinct camps emerging. The first is furious at Trump and ready to fight back. They see the tariffs as an attack on Canada and want to make it hurt for the US. The second camp is more resigned. They've been struggling for years, watching the middle class erode and the cost of living skyrocket, and they see Trump's tariffs as a wake-up call, a harsh but necessary reckoning for a country that's lost its way. Personally, I think that both camps are missing the bigger picture. This isn't just about Canada versus the US. It's about a global economic experiment that could reshape the world order. And whether you love Trump or hate him, you gotta admit he's delivering on his promises. He told the Rust Belt he'd bring back their jobs, and he's doing it. At least he's trying. The question is, at what cost? Here's the harsh truth. Canada can't win this trade war. Not in the short term, and probably not even in the long term. Our economy is too dependent on the US, and we spent years neglecting the industries and infrastructure that could have made us self-sufficient. Building pipelines and LNG plants to export natural gas to global markets would take at least a decade, time we don't have. In the meantime, we're stuck with tariffs that will raise prices, disrupt supply chains, and hurt everyday Canadians. And despite the fact that the Canadian dollar is likely going to be heading into the no bueno zone, BMO has come out and said that they expect 6 consecutive 25 basis point rate cuts. Shocking, right? A Canadian big bank expects Canada to juice the credit markets and housing markets to try to get ourselves out of this economic trouble. Okay, so let's wrap it up. Canada is at a crossroads. We can either double down on the policies that got us here, or we can take a hard look in the mirror and make some tough decisions. Trump's tariffs are a symptom of a larger problem, a problem we've been ignoring for far too long. The question is, will we rise to the challenge, or will we continue to sleepwalk into economic oblivion? One thing's for sure, the next decade is going to be tough. But if we play our cards right, it could also be the moment we finally wake up and take control of our future. Because if we don't, we might just find ourselves as the 51st state. And no amount of booing at hockey games is going to change that. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button, subscribe, ring that notification bell. Also, let me know what you think in the comment section, whether you like my commentary, you hate my commentary. I don't care. I just like it in the comments. Thanks for watching, everyone.